was so mainstream as far as advertising goes. The fact that they got the naming rights to the basketball arena in Miami. Well, I'm old enough to remember when the Houston Astros played baseball at Enron Field. So this really, it shouldn't be something that terribly surprises everyone. Obviously, it's going to deter some institutional investment, but overall, it really gets away from, it's traditional finance mistakes, and it gets away from the ideals and the philosophy that underpin Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies, and that they shouldn't have these trusted intermediaries in between. They were supposed to be peer-to-peer networks. So it really is a failure of these kinds of ideals.
If we continue to build out crypto, and there's still yet a lot to be known in terms of FTX and whether or not it was just mistakes after mistakes or what. So that's why you've got a bankruptcy court and they're looking into it, trying to make sense of it. But having said that, Everett, I mean, in terms of crypto becoming, and we use crypto broadly, loosely, to cover a lot. So to be fair, to be really smart about it, you've got to break it down into really what each of the elements are. But crypto, for it to really work, is not to create another system, financial system that kind of is like our traditional financial system. It's got to be more direct. That's when it makes sense.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it on the head that one of the major kind of driving animuses of what caused all of this debacle really is this repeated mistakes that we've already seen, where crypto being a new industry is kind of feeling these things out on its own. I definitely feel for a lot of the young and inexperienced traders and retail investors who are harmed by this. We saw that a teacher's pension in Canada lost $75 million in this, and we're still seeing how that contagion is spreading throughout the crypto ecosystem with BlockFi and Genesis and Grayscale. But again, I think you made the right point that in trying to emulate all of the same sort of structures that already exist in traditional finance, that's not what crypto really, that's not what it was invented for. That's not what these innovations are or should be building toward. Is not just a replacement of the existing financial system. And interestingly enough, I think there's some perspective in terms of, the regulation that's certainly going to be coming, in terms of how systemically important is crypto at the current moment. And I think the answer is that it clearly wasn't. We haven't seen this widespread destruction elsewhere. And just for a little perspective, although in an absolute sense the FTX collapse has harmed people in a dollar sense, I think back to the original kind of crypto winter that occurred when Mt. Gox, the main exchange, one of the original exchanges, collapsed in 2013. That Mt. Gox made up 70% of crypto trading volume at that time. FTX is only 10% of the current trading volume. So we do need to keep that in mind when we look at, is this the death of crypto? Is the whole Web3 environment and NFTs and other cryptos, are they going to disappear? I think the answer is no. But from this rubble, what builds up beyond it probably should not just be a replica of the existing banking system.
All right, Everett, great stuff. Always appreciate getting your perspective. Everett Millman, Chief Market Analyst at Gatesville Coins. And I don't know, Carol, do I need to seek validation from traditional Wall Street firms of this crypto space? Or can it evolve and grow? That's what do I need Jamie Dimon to tell me, okay, this is a real business, this is a real asset class?
Not necessarily, but I do wonder about some kind of regulatory oversight, right? But the whole idea is this kind of peer-to-peer, right? To get rid of all the minimum, make it much more transparent, clear. Read that Union story about crypto. You will understand all the specifics that make up this industry and how it's supposed to work. It makes more sense, and I think, I don't know, I think it got very muddy.
Yeah, right? It did. And you just think about an exchange going under, what would that look like in the equity markets, for example, NASDAQ or something? It's something to think about. So the whole issue of Bloomberg doesn't switch to this issue. This is Bloomberg.
You're listening to Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker with some of your top stories today. Well, it's Black Friday today, so the annual sales bonanza might not be as positive as usual for retailers, with spending forecast to fall. However, Bloomberg says believes it may not be so bad as expected.
I don't think it's going to be a total turkey. There's lots of doom and gloom, but there's a couple of things to remember that may see it be a bit better. Lots of consumers are clearly under pressure, but others have still got pretty robust personal balance sheets. Plus, it's the first holiday season for 3 years where the economy's open.
Well, seasonal sales are likely to fall 1.2%. That would be the first decline since 2009, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence data. The Federal Reserve in the path of interest rates still in the driver's seat for markets, and David Page at Access Investment says anybody pricing in Fed rate cuts next year is off the mark at this point.
We would expect the inflation close to 4% by the end of next year, but still not enough for the Fed to sort of ring the all clear. Consequently, I think you can see the Fed delaying those cuts coming through the market pricing.
That's David Page at Access Investments. In what was seen as a watershed moment, workers at a warehouse on Staten Island voted earlier this year to join an upstart union. But now, thousands of Amazon warehouse workers across 40 countries plan to take part in protests and walkouts to coincide with Black Friday sales, one of the busiest days of the year for online shopping. Employees in the U.S., U.K., India, Japan, Australia, South Africa, and across Europe are demanding better wages and working conditions as the cost of living crisis deepens in a campaign that's being dubbed Make Amazon Pay. And former President Trump being sued for battery under a New York law that took effect yesterday, expanding his legal fight with a former Elle magazine advice columnist who claims he raped her in the dressing room back in the 1990s. E. Jean Carroll filed a complaint in Manhattan federal court where she already has a defamation suit pending against Trump over remarks he made about her from the White House after she went public with the rape allegation in 2019. Global news 24 hours a day, on air, and on Bloomberg Quick Take. I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg Radio. When news breaks across the globe, Bloomberg Radio is there. From Asia, President Biden sits down with China's President Xi Jinping to Europe.
In the UK, the country heads into a likely recession.
And anywhere in the world, news happens.
We're going to go live to Taipei.
Bloomberg's Stephen Engel in Bali has the very latest.
We go live to Buckingham Palace this morning.
We get the latest from Bloomberg's Francie Lacqua in Rome.
Joining us now, Maria Tadeo in Madrid.
Bloomberg 1130 on the ground, everywhere.
Bloomberg, the Future Investor Series, comes to Atlanta on December 1st. We're bringing together leaders from major companies like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley to explore the mindset of the next generation of investors. U.S. presenting sponsor, Invesco QQQ. Register at BloombergLive.com/thefutureinvestor/radio. That's BloombergLive.com/thefutureinvestor/radio.
Burton LLP Accountants and Advisors presents Tax Chat with Marcy Greenfield, partner and co-leader of Burton's Manufacturing, Distribution, and Retail Practice.
With online retail and direct-to-consumer selling becoming industry norms, it is essential for manufacturing, distribution, and retail companies to innovate and remain competitive. Investing in innovation will not only help a company succeed, but will also enable them to qualify for research and development tax credits, which can range from 4 to 7% of all eligible spending for new and improved products and processes. Tax Burden was factoring a company's unique circumstances to develop a tax strategy that helps identify and claim eligible R&D incentives. If you're an executive looking to maximize tax savings, let Burden help you move forward with confidence.
For more Tax Chat for Burton Accountants and Advisors, visit BurtonLLP.com. That's BurtonLLP.com. Burton Accountants and Advisors. We listen, we solve, we do.
Why do institutional broker-dealers rely on BNY Mellon Pershing for a tailored and proactive experience? Marcus Mattielli, Director of Institutional Solutions, shares how Pershing helps you consider everything.
In this highly competitive environment, BNY Mellon Pershing's institutional solutions team wants to know, what are you doing today to position your firm for future growth? Do you have confidence in the stability and durability of your strategic partners? Can you you access to their guidance to help you be better, sharper, faster, and more strategic? Whether it's clearing, financing, collateral management, securities lending, or global trade execution, BNY Mellon and Pershing are committed to meeting the evolving needs of institutional firms.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for broker-dealers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
At PPAC Private Wealth Management, we know that a portfolio is more than just a collection of assets. It's a path to your future. We know this because for over 100 years, we've developed relationships built on trust and unwavering dedication to our clients. To learn about our approach to advice and planning, investment management, and trust and fiduciary solutions, visit ppacprivate.com. Start growing your financial legacy today. Not FDIC insured, no bank guarantee, may lose value.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is the Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World headquarters, I'm Tracy Johnke. Consumers are paying record prices for the turkey on Thanksgiving tables and the eggs used in holiday baking. The main reason is the avian influenza outbreak that is now officially the worst on record. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says more than 50.5 million birds have been killed in an effort to control the virus's spread. The previous record was set in 2015. Nothing out of control about the prices on Wall Street, but the Dow is now at its highest since April after rising 0.5%, 153 points to 34,347. The Nasdaq down 0.5%, 59 points higher, down. The S&P down 1 point. The bond market is still open for a bit. The 10-year yield is at 3.69%. The 2-year, 4.46%. Spot gold at $17.53 an ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude fell more than 2% to settle at $76.28 a barrel. Paul and Carol.
All right, Tracy Johnke, thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, we just heard a story recently on Bloomberg News about how many gajillions of people are traveling this weekend. Well, you couldn't pay me to go to an airport. I mean, Newark Airport on Thanksgiving weekend. No, thank you. I'm staying right in when people can come to me. But apparently, on the outline, a lot of folks are getting up and going. Alicia Kapoor, she follows this stuff. She's a senior industry manager at SimilarWeb. Alicia, give us a sense of kind of where are we in terms of this whole travel thing now vis-a-vis maybe, I don't know, pre-pandemic, like normal times?
Yeah, we are seeing that travel has picked up to almost past normal times, right? We've seen throughout this whole year that traffic to major sectors online, and that's the digital traffic, has been way higher than 2019, and especially during Thanksgiving weekend, we expect that will be thrown out of the water. I know I was coming home from New York, and Metro North, I couldn't even get a seat. Everyone was standing the whole time, so I think that this was a blowout holiday season, and I do expect as going forward, too, that travel recovery will just keep continuing, especially just as other sectors have been hit. I think travel has a lot of potential going forward. There's a lot of consumer demand yet left, so even as consumer wallets are shrinking, I think people still want to spend on travel.
Alyssa, how much can you tell about, kind of fun travel, tourism versus business travel that's going on?
It's a great question. We see mostly a lot of travel is still leisure, and a lot of travel brands are pivoting to kind of help the leisure customer or for the leisure customer. I think that business travel is still taking a little bit longer to come back. That being said, we have seen that traffic to expense report sites, to Concur, and typical sites that would conduct
I was on Concur on Wednesday. We'll be on it today. But go ahead. Continue.
We have seen that traffic has been up to those sites, so I do think that business travel is coming back. I just think it looks very different than what we expect, and I think that companies are still trying to navigate that.
Alicia, where are folks traveling these days, domestic versus international? How's that playing? The dollar is so strong. I mean, if you want to go to Europe, boy, now seems to be the time.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing that the destinations, international destinations that we previously had seen pretty depressed are seeing renewed traffic, especially in Europe. And like you said, with Americans having a lot more buying power, Americans are much more comfortable leaving the country. So I think that international destinations are definitely doing better than they were before, and are more in demand than domestic destinations. And you can see that even in ticket prices. International flights are really, really expensive right now. However, there hopefully should be some deals with Travel Tuesday coming up.
Yeah, I've been amazed at looking at some flights, how expensive it is for work or otherwise. And you may have hit on this, but I want to go back to it. You said there's been a lot of activity. We're seeing a lot of travel. There's a lot on the travel sites, airlines. How much of it, though, is looky-loos? How much of it is it ultimately they pay it in, they buy a ticket, and they're going somewhere?
So yeah, it's a great question. So originally, earlier in the pandemic, we were seeing a lot of browsing without converting or buying tickets. Now we are seeing a much higher conversion rate across sites. So we're seeing that a lot of the people that are browsing across multiple sites. They are still looking for deals, but ultimately converting and buying tickets. And I think that there's a lot more pressure to buy tickets. Again, with those prices being so high, people are trying to book, and they're booking earlier than ever before, right? People are booking far into next year. They're trying to make sure they kind of have their travel down before things get too expensive, or before they're not able to afford it for other reasons.
Alicia, I am not a cruise person, but I know lots of them, and they are very passionate about cruising. Where are we in terms of that industry making a comeback?
That is a great question. Cruises come back with a vengeance. We saw that after the restrictions were lifted earlier this year. The cruise sector actually had more recovery than any other sector when we compare traffic to 2019. So people really came back out. And we're seeing that there's a ton of demand for cruise lines still. I think that the biggest thing we've seen is that over the past 3 years, super premium brands really gained a lot of traffic share because they were offering discounts, and they tend to have the most loyal consumer bases. So now it's really up to mass brands to kind of pull back that share. So we'll see how that dynamic kind of changes, but in general, cruising is back. Like you said, there's a lot of really, really hardcore loyalist cruisers who are really excited about the new ships that have been launched. There's some new programs. I know there's really extended cruises. Like I think there's a 197-day trip one. So people are really excited about those, and I think there's a lot of promos going on in that industry too. So a lot of cruisers are taking advantage of those.
I just caught up for a special for Bloomberg TV with the CEO and CFO of Royal Caribbean. I mean, they're getting ready to launch the new Icon of the Seas. It's going to be the world's largest cruise ship. You're talking about over 7,000 passengers. They're going to have different neighborhoods. It's unbelievable. And Alicia, one of the things they talked about currently is that people are buying their tickets and kind of doing that in advance. And as a result, it's kind of paid for. And then when they come on ship, they'll tend to spend more money on excursions and things. So people are coming back in a big way when it comes to cruising. What is happening when it comes to tourism? Where aren't you seeing things happening and coming back?
I think that unfortunately Asia still, just with a lot of the lockdowns around COVID, we're not seeing a ton of activity there, especially from international tourism standpoint, right? So from both sides, we're not seeing a lot of people go towards the Asian region, and we're not seeing Asian tourists in typical areas that they would have been in. And typically that indicates kind of a loss, especially in luxury spend. So we're definitely seeing losses there, but like you said, I think that we are seeing a lot of money coming back into travel with a lot of the restrictions over the past few years. There's a lot of studies that are showing that travel is the last place where consumers want to cut spend right now.
Because we couldn't go anywhere for 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's a blessing to be able to travel again, and I think we're going to see a lot of people. We're going to see a lot of renewed energy throughout the industry for months to come.
Hey, Lucia, how about the theme park business? Disney was saying that's still a strong business for them. Is that kind of industry-wide?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I don't look too closely into theme parks. We have seen pretty strong numbers behind theme parks generally. I think the biggest question really, again, with
foreign tourists, and with the American dollar being so strong, is
Right.
will continue coming to theme parks. And we haven't seen too many shifts yet, but we'll definitely let you know if we do.
Good stuff. All right, Alicia, thank you so much for joining us on this busy Friday. Alicia Kapoor, Senior Industry Manager for SimilarWeb, talking about the airline business. People are traveling. I mean, totally. Yeah, they're back, and why not? Because we were, as you mentioned, kind of locked down for a couple of years.
Here's my show over in Madrid. My co-host, Tim Zenovic, he's visiting family,
Is he?
got on planes.
Okay.
I mean, so
Yep.
people are out there.
People are out there.
Except for Paul Sweeney.
Yeah, and Matt Miller, who knows where he is? I mean, he's just in the wind, as they say. So we had a Friday here. We just the Dow about 150 points. The NASDAQ was pretty much flat. So there you go. There is your Black Friday. This is Bloomberg.
The business of sports, where the money is flowing. Inside sports around the globe. Hi, I'm Michael Barr. FIFA World Cup, baby. On the show, famed soccer broadcaster on this. And the only U.S. player in 4 World Cups. Join Scarlet Food, Damian Southsour, and me when we speak with DeMarcus Beasley. Bloomberg Business of Sports. Tonight at 7 on Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Also available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hayden & Regal is one of the largest independently owned global investment management firms. With more than $118 billion in assets under management, we offer an array of tailored investment strategies, including equity, fixed income, and balanced portfolios, as well as domestic and offshore mutual funds. Independent since 1983, Hayden & Regal is committed to providing customized investment management solutions focused on achieving our clients' financial objectives. Learn more at Payden.com.
Now that so much work happens outside the office, your firm can compliance list when it comes to audio and video calls. Bloomberg Surveillance Solutions now transcribes, translates, and investigates voice data in over 65 languages across 80 channels. It's also the only product in the market that can monitor and interrupt Bloomberg communications in real time, all in one central AI-powered tool. Explore all our surveillance solutions at Bloomberg.com/explore/compliance.
New York City's first and only Lifeline community, River's Edge, will soon be built on a 32-acre campus along the Hudson River, just minutes away from Grand Central and Riverdale. River's Edge, a community for adults ages 62 and up, combines a cosmopolitan lifestyle with the security of knowing that if your health changes, your needs can be met seamlessly right where you live. You have a Lifeline with easy access to uninterrupted on-site care at no additional cost, no matter how your needs change. River's Edge, your plan for wonderful. Call 844-55-RIVER. That's 844-55-RIVER or visit riveredge.org.
Change can be disruptive, but at Bloomberg, we think bigger. Our sell-side solutions combine trading and automation with market-leading data, so you can evolve, scale, and embrace change. This is Bloomberg for the sell side. Visit Bloomberg.com/sell-side. When you're thinking about including charity in your will, you want to make sure your legacy is secure. For almost 100 years, the New York Community Trust has been a trusted partner to thousands of New Yorkers who want to give back. Together with the Trust, you can custom build a charitable fund that ensures your name will live on as a champion of the causes dear to you. Build a future for our region with the New York Community Trust. It's how New Yorkers create legacies. Visit philanthropist.nyc to learn more.
Live from the financial capital of the world, broadcasting across the globe, this is WBBR New York, Bloomberg 1130.
Okay, men, time to be an all-star caregiver. Right in the physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Be there emotionally and physically. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
My God, forgive me for what I'm going to do. That's the end line of a death note found on the phone of the man who committed a mass shooting this week at a Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia. The city tweeted the full note where the suspect said he failed God and his associates were going to suffer the same fate as him. He said co-workers mocked him, laughed at him, and said he was like the notorious serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. Toward the end of the note, he said he was going to spare someone because he had a special place for her in his heart because his mother passed away from cancer. American households are still being squeezed by rising prices. A Moody's Analytics report of October data shows the average household is spending $433 more a month to buy the same goods and services it did a year ago. That figure is down slightly from the $445 figure reported in September. Pope Francis is addressing Ukrainians as Russia continues to wage war against the country. In a letter published by the Vatican, Francis said he holds the people of Ukraine in his heart and prayers each day. He asked how it's possible that men can treat other men this way. The Pope spoke about the suffering of young Ukrainian children and those who had to flee their homes during the war, saying in each one of them is the defeat of the whole of humanity. The possibility of a nationwide rail strike has some in Congress considering action. Union leaders say there are still many outstanding issues to be resolved before a looming December 9th deadline. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa is among the lawmakers saying they may have to step in. Grassley said this week a previous rail shutdown in 1991 may serve as the model this time around as well. A senator from Pennsylvania is introducing a bill that aims to address violence used by law enforcement against people with disabilities. Democrat Bob Casey's office says the proposal would develop a data collection system to get an accurate count of how many people with disabilities are affected by dealings with law enforcement, including use of force and fatal interactions. I'm Julie Ryan. Authorities investigating the stabbing deaths of 4 students in an Idaho college town are now looking at a similar attack last year in Oregon. Michael Kastner reports.
In August of 2021, a couple in Salem was stabbed in their sleep by an unknown assailant. One of the victims survived the attack, but police never found a suspect. Earlier this month, 4 students at the University of Idaho in Moscow were stabbed to death in their sleep. Police have yet to find a suspect in that attack. On Wednesday, Moscow police told reporters they received a tip about the Oregon stabbing, and we are looking at every avenue.
Mercedes-Benz is going to offer an online subscription service in the U.S. to make its electric cars speed up quicker. Mark Mayfield explains.
For an annual cost of $1,200 before tax, the company will enable some of its cars to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour a second faster. The announcement comes after rival BMW offered a subscription feature earlier this year for its heated seats. The acceleration increase subscription is listed as coming soon on the U.S. Mercedes storefront with no exact date given for its release.
The Coast Guard is reporting the rescue of a passenger who went missing from a Carnival cruise ship. A Carnival spokesperson says the man's sister reported him missing around noon on Thanksgiving after losing track of him at a bar on the ship the night before. The ship worked with the Coast Guard in a search and rescue operation, retracing its route as it sailed to Cozumel. The man had gone overboard, and the Coast Guard rescued him from the water and took him to receive medical treatment. A family in Missouri was looking forward to welcoming a new addition in a couple of weeks, but the baby had other plans and arrived before Thanksgiving. That's when the family's 5-year-old son stepped in to help. When the mother's water broke Tuesday, her husband was at work, and their young son took over and called 911. First responders in Lee Summit in the Kansas City area were there within 15 minutes, and the baby arrived not long afterwards. The 5-year-old also opened the door for the paramedics and brought towels to help with the delivery. I'm Julie Ryan.
And I'm Tracy Johnke from Bloomberg World Headquarters. One pre-pandemic holiday shopping habit poised to make a comeback this year is procrastination.
Don't forget, Christmas is on a Sunday this year, so the lull will be deep, and it makes the end of the holiday season, the last 10 days before, people feel they can wait because they can wait until that Friday or Saturday.
Dana Telsey, CEO of Telsey Advisory Group. A Cowen analyst says retailers are giving shoppers another reason to wait. Pre-pandemic levels of discounting. Still, Bloomberg's Andrew O'Day reports stores are banking on the occasional splurge.
As the holiday shopping blitz begins, retailers are hoping that the U.S. consumer is both able and willing to spend. Jeff Gannett, CEO of Macy's, tells Bloomberg,
You might have a customer that is going to a private brand versus a market brand in one category, but they might be reaching up and buying a luxury item in another category as they're completing their holiday basket.
Retailers including Macy's, Gap, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Urban Outfitters have said that their higher-priced chains are outperforming their lower-priced ones. Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Investors on this Black Friday splurged a little on Macy's, Nordstrom, and Walmart. Stock in Best Buy fell around 1.5%, but its 13% gain this week is the biggest since May. The Dow is at its highest since April after rising 153 points to 34,347. That's 0.5% for the day, and for the week it's up 1.75%. The Nasdaq today fell 59 points or 0.5%. The S&P slipped by a single point. The gains are across the board for the week with some assistance from the Fed. The minutes of the early November meeting released Wednesday showed most Fed officials backing slowing the pace of interest rate hikes. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Tracy Johnke. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Bloomberg Quick Take's Tim Stenovich on Bloomberg Radio.
Hi everyone, welcome to a holiday weekend edition of Bloomberg Business Week. A cornucopia of conversations, you might say, as you recover to match your feast this Thanksgiving weekend.
In this hour, concerns about charter airlines. Inside one of the world's most influential consulting firms, Meta's digital ad dilemma, brought on by none other than Apple. And a once-great pandemic play tries to regain its mojo. We're going to speak to the CEO of Sonos.
That's a fun conversation. Then in our second hour, some lighter fare as you indulge perhaps in another slice of apple or pecan pie. How do you say it? Pecan?
Tomato, Carol.
Pecan pie, including, speaking of food, bam! Emeril Lagasse, renowned chef and restaurateur. Also, Grubhub founder Mike Evans. And then we've got the CEO of BET, Scott Mills, on Tyler Perry and Oprah.
All of that to come. We begin, though, with a word of caution as travelers take the air this holiday season. In the current double issue of Bloomberg Business Week, Alan Levin sheds light on the dark corners of the private aviation market, specifically charter flights.
This story was also a Bloomberg Big Take. Alan is aviation safety and FAA reporter. He joined us along with the editor of Bloomberg Business Week, Jill Weber.
Private aviation has become almost sort of a shadow world that is very attractive. You can get places far easier, and all you need is a little bit more money than flying via a normal one. And Alan's reporting here reveals that it comes with a host of problems and worries. Alan?
Yeah, that's correct. You know, in our world today, we can assume when you get in, if you call an Uber or you get in a taxi, that it's sort of been vetted by the government. It's not perfect, but at least, you know, they're looking at it. And I think that assumption carries over into the charter world, not least, you know, at least in part, it's due to the fact that there are lots of apps you can get that will get you a charter flight. So people just assume it's the same thing, but unless you know what you're doing, it's really hard to tell the legitimate operators from the ones who are not licensed and, you know, in some cases are really cutting corners on safety.
I'm sorry, I'm just having like FTX flashbacks.
I was going to say, in a world of like
regulators and like accountability, you assume that because it has a fancy app that it, you know, and that it has ads, that it's going to be okay.
Right.
So this is really interesting. There's this part in the piece, Alan, and you have just some, you know, really heart-wrenching examples. Marcy Wilhelm is somebody you spoke to for the piece. Tell us about her experience flying privately.
Yeah, let me just start by saying I've been covering air crashes for a couple of decades now, and this is really one of the most heart-wrenching ones. Marcy was amazing, had an amazing success story. She had co-founded a healthcare company, and they sold it for almost $200 million. This was back in 2018. She'd been hired to be the CEO of the successor company, and you know, it was going away on a long weekend to Nantucket with some friends from her house in Florida. They stopped in South Carolina to pick up some folks, and the plane essentially did not have brakes, and it's a fairly big corporate jet with high speeds compared to some other planes, and it just went screaming off the end of the runway down an embankment and broke into pieces. It killed both pilots, and Marcy and her husband were both severely injured. And what investigators came to learn very quickly was that the plane never should have been in service on many different levels. Legitimate charter operator, but they're required to put each and every aircraft on their certification. This aircraft was not. Beyond that, it had dozens of maintenance items that weren't complete. And the most stunning thing of all is a mechanic had noticed that the brakes weren't working, had put a bright orange placard, kind of a sticky note, if you will, on the brake panel right in front of the pilot's faces that said inoperable, and they still landed without the brakes and had this accident.
How is this happening still? What are the blind spots here?
You know, in the legitimate air charter world, I don't want to leave listeners confused. In the legitimate world, there is a ton of FAA oversight. It's not perfect. Occasionally we see flaws, but they're required to everything from pilot training to drug testing employees, on and on and on. But there's 20,000 or so private jets that are privately owned in the U.S. And let's say you're a business and you bought this jet and suddenly the costs of maintenance are adding up. You might say, well, geez, why don't we just rent it out, to somebody? And if you do that, you're not following all those safety measures that the legitimate guys do. And from the outside of the plane, it's almost impossible to tell the difference.
What's your advice to folks out there who might be interested in chartering?
Well, it turns out the FAA, partly in a reaction to this, a few years ago, began publishing a list of all the aircraft that are legitimately licensed to carry people for hire. So you can look that up. If you Google FAA air charter safety, you'll find a link to it. There's a trade group that has been very involved in this as well, and there are also several private companies that do auditing of charter companies to sort of save the customer the hassle of doing that. And so there are definitely ways to figure out who's legit and who's not.
That was Bloomberg News aviation safety and FAA reporter Alan Levin, along with the editor of the magazine, Joel Weber. Check out Alan's full story in the business section of the magazine. And this story, it also involves members of the Hollywood Carol and political elite.
Yeah, names you will definitely know. Coming up, an inside look at one of the most powerful and secretive consulting firms on the planet. We're talking about McKinsey & Company.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. This is Bloomberg.
The business of sports,
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
Hi, I'm Michael Barr. FIFA World Cup, baby! On the show, famed soccer broadcaster Andres Cantor, and the only U.S. player in 4 World Cups, joins Scarlett Fu, Damian Sassower, and me when we speak with DeMarcus Beasley. Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Tonight at 7
On Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Also available wherever you get your podcasts.
The U.S. has a long and storied history of immigration. Visit the Ellis Island National Museum of Immigration to explore the influences, experiences, and impact of 5 centuries of American immigration. Go to ellisisland.org to learn more. Dear Calvary Hospital, no parent should ever have to go through the heartbreak of the death of a child. When my son Warren's inoperable cancer gave him just months to live, Calvary came into our lives.